Alright, I killed the lights a little bit so you won't see so much glare on the TV, but that's what I'm getting. Just some noise and a black screen, and you can hear the speaker squeal. Don't know what that is, but you can tell the screen is getting some type of video signal, because when I flip it on, you see, you hear something, you hear the speaker, you hear a little bit of noise, but nothing's happening. So what I did is, because I haven't been able to program a dead cart yet. So anyway, when you put a cart in, depending on the cart, it'll bypass, what I read is it'll bypass some of the normal boot procedures and just boot up the cart. So I plugged that in, and it's kind of hit or miss whether this works, but let's go ahead and see if we get anything. Nothing. Alright, let's reseat it. I also tried to clean this a little bit, the cart and the, I'll be right back. I'm going to reseat it one more time. Nothing, huh? I was getting an image before. So now I have an image, and actually, you know, at one point I was getting color. I don't know exactly. I changed cables, so I don't know if this is a cable issue or what's going on, or it's a cart or whatever, but it's kind of like in black and white. Whoops. But at least I get an image. So I think that means maybe my PLA chip is working. I'm not sure, but we should be able to put the dead cart in a working dead cart and get more information of what's going on. So that's my next step, is to actually build a dead cart, and I am going to do that. Yeah, so I switched cables real quick, and I finally got the cart to boot. It doesn't boot every time, but you can definitely see color in the system, so I'm trying to figure that out. I think I'm going to have to look at that cable, and I assume it's not for a composite. I assume it's separate Luma and Chroma, but I haven't checked the pinouts, and I have to go back and see what I ordered anyway. So maybe I ordered the wrong cable or something, or it's wired incorrectly or something like that. But that looks like what it's supposed to look like. So definitely can get an image, but the computer's not booting. So I think we need to do the dead cart and maybe check the reset on the CPU. But the CPU has to be working, or we wouldn't be getting this. Doesn't mean that all the other chips are working. So still a lot of work to do, but a little bit of progress, obviously. All right, it's the next day, and I've done some additional troubleshooting, and I'll just catch you up real quick, because last night I started doing a whole bunch of stuff without the camera rolling. But anyway, this cable issue that I bought, I just took it apart, and I could tell, you can see that the red and white cable are actually soldered to the same pin. So I didn't look up the pinout, but I assume that's audio, and then the yellow's composite. So this is actually a composite, and I was trying to use it as Luma and Chroma, so that's the issue there. Figured that out, and it's pretty easy just to put this back. You just put it like that, and then I think just kind of pull this little tab up. There we go. Just pull that metal tab up, and I think that holds the little cover on there, like so it doesn't come off. So that was that issue. Then I was trying to get the dead carts to work, and I was messing with this this Epix loader, and this thing doesn't boot all the time for some reason. I have this other cart that I actually took apart. This is Kickman, and I was using that, and sometimes it would boot, and I couldn't get this cart, this dead cart here, to work, and I was just reviewing the documentation and everything, and the way it was sent to me, I think, was with the dip switches like up, down, 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 up, or something. Let me see. And the directions are actually freaking confusing because I think it says it two different ways. Like, it gives the documentation here. We'll say for a dead test, you want the jumpers up, down, doesn't matter for number 3, and then down, up. So I think I had it like this, and that didn't work. And then I looked at what kind of ROM it was, and this is, I think, a 27. And I didn't burn this myself, so it's a 27C256, and I believe if you're going to use a 256, you're going to have to put them all up like this. So 3, 4, and 5 are all up for address lines 15, 14, and 13. And then you want, for a dead test, you want the game to be on and the XROM to be down, and you want ROM H to be high. So eventually, this is the right configuration for the dead test based off of how this ROM was burnt and the type of ROM, the 27256. But I also, while I was doing that, tried to build a dead cart for this using a 2764, which is typical 8K ROM. And when I was on thefuturewas8bit.com, it says the silk screen is wrong, and you should actually have the XROM is actually game, and game is actually XROM. So I actually had the solder blob over here, but I guess since maybe his website has changed, maybe he's fixed the silk screen on these, because this is definitely working now the way it is. So the solder blob is on game, and the solder blob is on ROM high, and this is a 2764 ROM with the dead test. And I'm not using anything there, so I just use solder blob. So that took me like probably an hour to figure out and just experiment here, trying to get this damn dead test thing to work. And I'll show you why it took so long. But beyond that, on the website, he says that the silk screen is wrong, but it seems to be correct, I believe. So yeah, because dead test. Yeah, see, this is, oh, that's a multi-card example. Gotcha. That's the other thing that was throwing me off with these directions on the Versa card. It says multi-test, multi-card example. So this isn't a multi-card. So is this example not relevant for just setting it up for a dead test? Anyway, all I know is the directions weren't super clear for me, so let's probably put the dead test in. I also labeled some of these chips. So this is the VIC chip. I think you need that. The PLA chip, and obviously the CPU chip. You need those 3 chips at a minimum to get the dead test to work. There's the SID chip for the audio, and then you have character ROM, kernel ROM, basic ROM, and then the Commodore interface adapters. So yeah, so that was another thing that I researched last night that was important, because I'm going to show you in a second. We're going to put this dead test in. Alright, we've got the dead test cart in, and now it's actually jumpered correctly, as far as I know. Game and ROM H, which makes sense. This one says game and ROM H as well. So that's how that dead test cart's supposed to be set up, and it looks like that silk screen has been corrected, I guess. Or the jumpers, the PCB layout maybe has been fixed, I'm not sure. Alright, so let's turn this on and see what we get. And it's a black screen. and I'm using my PVM this time instead of the 1084 there, but I'm not getting anything. So that's when I was like, alright, what could be causing the problem? I haven't even started probing things, but what I figured I would do is take out the unrequired chips. And I started with the SID, and I'm going to take it out real quick with my anti-static thing here. Make sure my power's off. Alright, so we took out the SID, and we're going to power on. We get the NTSC signal there, so we know that it's getting a video signal. And bam, took out the SID chip, and all of a sudden my dead test is working. This took me a while to figure out because just messing with the dead test carts and getting them jumpered correctly, and then taking out the SID chip and removing chips until I got something. So that's probably not. I'm going to put the SID back in and actually probe some of the lines with my oscilloscope here, see what they look like. But this is what the dead test is looking like, and I think this means that everything's good. I need to burn a diagnostic ROM as well, but this looks like everything is going okay as far as I know. I haven't watched a ton of these yet, so. And it says count 1 or count 0, so I think as it goes through the entire test, it'll run it again, it'll do the test again. There, it's done. And we'll watch it for a little bit longer. I guess this is testing all the RAM. I don't know everything that this is testing. Obviously it's not able to test the sound because I have the SID chip out. And now when it goes to 0 page, you see the count goes up to 1. So anyway, so that's how I knew I was able to get the dead test working, and that means that most of all of these chips are working except for this SID chip. Obviously must be shorted or have might be causing an address line or something to be wacky. So I'll put it in and we can look at that with the oscilloscope or logic. Real quick, I figured I'd boot it up with the pit stop cart in and the SID chip removed, and it boots every time. And you can see I need to adjust the brightness just a little bit. But anyway, you can see that that's too bright. It boots every single time. So the problem with booting the cart, it was kind of hit or miss whether I'd actually get an image, was really based off of the SID. So different carts might be using different part functionality of it or something. I'm not sure, but I was getting different results depending on what cart I was using, whether the Kickman or the pit stop. And obviously I couldn't get my dead carts to work either, so it would just be a black screen with the dead cart in there. Alright, so just wanted to show that. It works every time. SID chip is definitely I've switched to the 1084, and just to show that real quick, looks good on there as well. You have to hit the little button I did in the first video I did on the Amiga. There's a button on the back that changes it from Luma Chroma to composite, and so since this cable is composite, I had to change it back there, and that's the image, and it looks great. Yeah, looks pretty good. So anyway, both monitors work and everything, and now let's put the SID chip back in and see if we can probe it, so that that might help somebody else. Alright, so what I did is I just looked at the schematic right there, and there's probably a better diagram of this online, but basically I just went through the pins of the SID chip and wrote out what it's supposed to be, like VDD or audio out, the data lines, etc. And I'll just set that there. Hopefully It's okay sitting there. Then I hooked up my logic probe, and I might get the oscilloscope out as well, but hooked up my logic probe. I just hooked the negative lead to this heat sink, which is tied to ground, and my 5 volts over to where the LED is listed at. So let's zoom in as best we can. And I don't even have the dead card in. This is just me booting it up here. That's what we're going to do here. And we're just going to go probe pin by pin and show what it looks like. So let's power on. Let's see, is this on? Yep. Powered on. And pin 1. I'll get my logic probe out here. Is tied to a capacitor. It's high. 2 is high. 3 is nothing, which is kind of interesting. I don't know. I'm going to make a note of that. And 4 is high. So let me pause real quick, because that, to me, that's kind of interesting that 3 is low like that. I'll pause and be right back. Yeah, you can still see. Okay. So I'll turn it back on. That's the reset pin of the CPU there, and that's high, which is what it's supposed to be. So we went to pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the reset. It's supposed to be high. 6 is, I believe, the clock, and that looks like there's probably so much activity that the logic probe's not picking it up. So many transitions. 7 is read write, and write is high, so it's trying to write to it, I think. Chip select, pin 8 is high, which is, I believe, normal. Oh, that's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the ground. It should be low. Now that is address 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, all of those look like they had activity. Like there's the address pins were active. So nothing kind of stood out there. It was just toggling so fast that you can't actually see it. 15 is data. Let me move over just a little bit. 15 is data. Can you see that? Okay. That's data. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all of those look like they have activity on it. That's low, and that's for the pot X and Y. And then there's our 5 volts. That should be empty because that's pin 26 is an input from the external. Audio out is high, which is kind of strange, I guess, maybe. And then VDD is high. So the only thing that was kind of interesting was right here. That was high. We had good clock. Our address lines. That's ground. The rest of them seem like normal to me. So nothing out of the ordinary there. Okay, so I put in the SID chip from the other Commodore that I have, and I don't know if this one works or not. But let's power it on. Actually, I'm going to power it on while I hold the to pin 40 of the 6510 CPU, so you can see that as well. So it starts off low and then goes high. So you know the reset circuit's working correctly. And then if we go to pin 1, that's high, high, 3 is high. And that was different than what we had before. Before we had pin 3 was low. So this is definitely different than what we were getting on the other one. And if I show the PVM, we actually have a screen. It booted up, so all the other chips are working. It was just that SID chip, and something wrong. There's a short probably between pin 3 and ground or something like that, which is why that's low most likely. So this SID chip, I guess, is bad, unless somebody else knows a better way to, if there's a way to fix that or something. I'm not sure, but I bet internally that pin 3 has shorted out or something. So that's bad news that we have a bad SID. I think those are hard to find and get replaced. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I might, in my next video, do a giveaway of a dead cart or something like that. We'll see. I don't know. But not this video. So this one's going on a little bit long. But the good news is that the I was able to, this board is completely working. The VIC chip, the PIA, the PLA, I think the CIAs are working too. I need to run diagnostics. But the SID chip was what was preventing it from booting up carts, or just even booting period, and pin 3. So, alright. Hope that was interesting and helped somebody. Until next time. Bye.